Alright, so this question reads, the organizer of a luncheon will select exactly 5 foods to be served from exactly 8 foods, 2 desserts, F and G, 3 main courses, N, O, and P, 3 side dishes, T, V, and W. Only F, N, and T are hot foods. The following requirements will be satisfied. Alright, so we have desserts, F and G. We have main courses, N, O, and P, and we have side dishes, T, V, and W. And we know that F, N, or T are hot foods. So let's go ahead and depict our hot foods by putting a square around them. So we know square is a hot food. So we know 5 foods are going to be served of exactly 8. So that tells us we're going to be in an in and out game. We have 5 foods in and 3 foods out. Alright, now let's hit the rules. Rule number 1. At least 1 dessert, at least 1 main course, and at least 1 side dish must be selected. So we're told at least 1 dessert, at least 1 main course, and at least 1 side dish. Well, we have 3 main courses and 3 side dishes. We know at least 1 spot will be one of those 3 main courses and one of those 3 side dishes, and it's just easier for us to write out the binary. Since there's only 2 desserts, we can place them in here and say we either have F or G in this one spot. And so we know that that's going to depict our spot for dessert. We have at least 1 spot for main course and 1 for side as well. Alright, rule number 2. At least 1 hot food must be selected. So we know at least 1 square. So we can place a square up here just to remind us. Rule number 3. If either P or W is selected, both must be selected. Okay, so if P or W, then we have P and W. Contrapositive, if not P or not W, then not P and not W. Rule number 4, if G is selected, O must be selected. Contrapositive, if O is not selected, then G is not selected. And rule number 5, if N is selected, V cannot be selected. So if N is selected, and we know N is a hot food, then V cannot be selected. If V is selected, then N cannot be selected. So if you noticed, we have a not both situation here because we know that both of them can't be in. So that means at least one of them will be out, and it's possible that both of them could be out. So we have a placeholder in the out column for VN. Alright, so now we have a huge deduction. We know from rule number 3 that we're either going to have both P and W in, or we're going to have both P and W out. Because if one of P or W is in, they're both in, and if one of them is out, they're both out. So let's draw out both these options, having them be both in and both out. So we have PW in this first option, and then PW out in the second option. Alright, well, in the second option it's a little bit easier for us to fill out. We know since we definitely have a placeholder in the out column for one of V or N, we can place one of VN in and one of VN out. And the rest are going to be in. So that leaves us with F, which is also a hot food, G, O, and T, which is also a hot food. And this abides by all the rules because we have at least 1 dessert. We have 2 desserts here, F and G. We have a main course of O and possibly the main course of N. And we also have our side dish of T and possibly V. So now, the first scenario is a little bit trickier. Let's think about rule number 4. We know if we have G in, then we also have O in. So we have these 3 scenarios from rule number 4. Either we have G and O in, or we have O in and G out, or we have O and G out. So let's draw those options out. We have G in and O in. We know we need to have at least one hot food, so we know this is going to be a hot food, and then the other 2 hot foods are going to be out, so that's F, N, and T, and then we're left with V, which also has to be out. So that means we can place our F, N, T in the hot food spaces. F, N, T, F, N, T, F, N, T. And now that's our option if we have PW in and G and O in. Now, we can also have PW in and both O and G out. We know we have a placeholder for N and V, so that means the other one's going to be in. And then we have F and T left over, and they're both hot foods. So this goes along with all the rules. So then we know we have our option of O being in and G being out. So we have P and W in, O in, and then G out. So now the issue falls upon our NV placeholder. Either we're going to have one of NV out and one of NV in, or both N and V out. So let's have both N and V out in this scenario, which means we then have F and T in. Or we could have our last scenario of P, W, O, G, and then one of NV out and one of NV in. And since we need one dessert, one main course, and one side dish, and G is out, that means that F is going to be in to represent our dessert. So that places T out. So by using our scenarios with rules 3, 4, and 5, we've deduced the 5 different options for this game and figured out that this is actually just a guru game. So we have option 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now you're going to see that even though it took us a little extra time to write out these options, how quickly this game is going to go now since we have all 5 options written out. So we have our rules, our deductions, and our setup. Let's go ahead and hit the questions.